Oh, man. Man, oh, man, oh, man. Starting to get crazy again, folks. It is starting to get crazy. And I love it. I love it. This is why I do this, for these big-time stories, for things that really change the landscape of college football. And we're looking at something that could really change the landscape of college football. Not even just talking about conference realignment, but the bigger brands in different conferences getting, their fair share. In other words, not everybody getting paid the same amount. And that might sound a little harsh, but if you think about it, I mean, okay, just for example, let's say well, we're talking about the ACC, right? So is it does it seem fair? Does it seem normal? Does it seem right that Boston College gets the same amount of revenue, the same amount of money from the ACC/ESPN as Clemson? They don't make nearly, or Florida State, they don't make nearly as much money for the ACC as those two teams. So, and we might be moving in this direction for everybody. So we might be looking at a situation to where revenue is based on how much a particular university in whatever, well, football, because these TV deals are done with football. So how much money this particular university makes for the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the Big 10, the SEC, whoever, all the conferences, all right? They made us more money. They're going to get paid more. They didn't make as much money. They're the lowest brand. They get paid less. That sounds fair to me. It really does. And I'm a West Virginia fan, and if I'm in the same conference as, well, Texas and Oklahoma, they haven't left yet. They'll be gone in 2024, right? I would be fine with Texas and Oklahoma getting paid more than West Virginia. Why? Because they make more money for the Big 12 than West Virginia. And West Virginia is a good brand, all right? Don't get me wrong. West Virginia is a good brand, but not as good as Texas and Oklahoma, all right? So anyways, before we go on any further, please hit the like button. That's what really helps these videos. It helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm. It gets suggested more people see it, and they click on it, and that's how we grow our audience. So you're not just helping my video, you're actually helping yourself, because there's more people in the conversation in the comments section. So just take a quick second, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. This is what we do every single day. It's a sickness. I admit it. College football is a sickness for me. I'm obsessed with it, and I talk about it every single day. I do multiple videos every single day, and I do live shows at 10 p.m. every weekday. Now, this is a Saturday, and I usually don't do a live show on a Saturday. So you know something's up when Golden Blue Dude is going live at 10 p.m. on Saturday, right? Yes, something is up. One more thing before we dive into this. If you have a question, a comment, anything like that you want me to address, you want everybody to see, you want me to address, maybe it's something that somebody told you and you want me to address it, try to figure it out, or you want to troll me, you want to make fun of me. I'm a big old bullseye. A lot of people make fun of me. I'm okay with it. I have thick skin. Super chat that thing. Hit that little dollar sign that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Anything you put in that super chat is going to go on the screen for everybody to see, for me to address, all that good stuff. And it's a great way to support the channel, because I'm going to be honest with you. We always, us college football YouTubers, we always appreciate those super chats. But in the off season, we appreciate them just a little bit more, because it is a little more difficult to make money in the off season, because college football fans, they lose interest. So we appreciate all those donations. Let's dive into this thing. This is crazy, guys. So yesterday I did a video and a live show talking about Florida State coming out and voicing their frustration with the ACC. Yeah, they're not happy. So the athletic director of Florida State, he laid out the numbers. He said, yeah, Florida State makes about 15% of the revenue for the ACC, and we're only getting back 7%. The longer we stay in the ACC, the larger that gap grows. On top of that, Florida State is sick of looking at these teams in the Big 10 and the SEC making not just more money, but a massive amount more money. I mean, Florida State's a premier brand. So is Clemson. All right. So for them to say, hey, we want to be making at least close to the same amount as, like Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, the other premier brands in the SEC Big Ten. But on top of that, not even the premier brand. Northwestern is making more money than Clemson and Florida State. Freaking Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Illinois. And I'm not picking on people. I'm just making a point. Vanderbilt in the SEC. South Carolina, good brand, but not a premier brand. Arkansas, Mississippi State, brands like that. Good brands, but not premier brands. Clemson and Florida State are not making as much money as those teams, and they're finally coming out and voicing their opinion. And so I did videos yesterday on Florida State voicing their opinion. Well, today, Clemson breaks their silence as well. The Clemson athletic director was asked in an interview, which, by the way, I will be doing a regular video on this tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. I'll give you the screenshots of the interview, the exact words that were said, all that stuff. But here's what he said. Here's what the Clemson athletic director said. Asked about unequal revenue share, is it a want or a need? Clemson athletic director, this was his response. In all candor, I put it as a need. Not a want, a need. Goes on to say, we certainly recognize the investment that we've continued to make as an institution in our community in athletics, namely football, which certainly drives a lot of value that is important from a television and revenue generation standpoint. Okay? Goes on to say, it is time read that incorrectly. This is a question. Is it time revenue distribution within conferences, or at least the ACC, is done differently? Yes. I've been very active in those conversations. Whoa. So he's actually had conversations about this. He's been talking about this, okay, within the league, and continue to expect to take a leadership role in our desire for that to be changed, to be a changed circumstance. So the Clemson athletic director has been having talks and is expressing that he will continue to have talks and will continue to take a leadership role in this. He wants to lead the charge. He wants to make sure that the premier brands get paid what they deserve. There's going to be some big changes in the ACC one way or another. Now, I will say this. It looks like Clemson and Florida State are trying to give the ACC a chance to, quote, do the right thing. Do the right thing, right? We're the premier brand. We make more money than you guys. So we think it's fair, if you can't renegotiate the TV deal, that we get a higher percentage. And they're probably not asking for as much as what the SEC or the Big Ten is asking, but they need a raise. That's basically what this comes down to. Clemson and Florida State, they're asking for a raise. And to be honest with you, I think they deserve it. I really do. Florida State, they've had some down years, but they still continue to generate a large revenue share for the ACC. Florida State was good last year. They're expected to be even better this year. How much money is Florida State going to generate for the ACC this year? I think it could be a record year for Florida State because, and I'll get into all the preseason predictions, game by game, wins and losses and all that stuff. But looking at it first glance, I think Florida State has a chance to go 11-1 with their only loss being on the road to Clemson. I think they can win that game. Florida State's good enough to go on the road and beat Clemson, go undefeated. But I'm going to give Clemson the benefit of the doubt because they are a good team. It is in Clemson. So Florida State most certainly has a real chance, a real opportunity to go 11-1. Possibly go undefeated 12-0. And the fact that the ACC does not have division this year, Clemson and Florida State has an opportunity to make the ACC even more money in the ACC championship. Why? Because I think they will be the two best teams. That first matchup in Death Valley between Clemson and Florida State will be the highest revenue producing game in the ACC. I'm predicting it, guys. I'm predicting Florida State at Clemson will be the highest revenue producing game the entire season for the ACC. I think Florida State will go 11-1. Their only loss being to Clemson. And Clemson going either 11-1, 10-2, 12-0, something like that. Bottom line, two best teams, and it will be a rematch in the ACC championship. It could be the highest rated ACC championship in a very, very, very long time. Very long time. Maybe all time. I mean, really think about it. Clemson and Florida State, they're supposed to be really, really good. Both of these, let's just say both of these teams have double-digit win seasons, and both of these teams finish 1-2. Clemson 1, Florida State 2, or vice versa. Florida State 1, Clemson 2, right? They have a great game in the regular season. Maybe it comes down to the wire, whatever. And it's the highest revenue-producing game in the regular season for the ACC by far. I think that's going to happen. And then they have a rematch in the ACC championship. My gosh, that will break some records for an ACC championship. It will. And it could be on top of that, another storyline that could go into that game would be winner of the ACC championship game goes to the playoffs. If Florida State goes in with one loss and Clemson goes with no more than one loss, so either an undefeated versus a one loss or a one loss versus a one loss, winner will be guaranteed to get in. So not only are you going to have the rematch of the highest revenue producing game for the ACC the entire season, not only are you going to have a championship game of the two highest, best revenue producing brands in the ACC, but a spot in the playoffs could be on the line. I mean, that ACC championship game could be worth a lot of money this year. Now, maybe that's totally incorrect. Maybe Florida State trips up and loses another game that they shouldn't, or Clemson isn't as good as what they think, and it turns out that either one of them miss or both of them miss. I'm just telling you the potential of one of the highest revenue-producing ACC games out there. Clemson versus Florida State, the rematch, winner gets into the playoffs. Yes, that would make a lot of money for the ACC. So now that Florida State, the athletic director for Florida State has come out and said, "Hey, we want." Basically, he said we want unequal revenue share. We produce 15% of the revenue in football for the ACC. We're only getting 7% back. Now, Clemson's athletic director today, in an interview, has come out and said, "Yeah, we think that we deserve unequal revenue share. We've been having talks already," which I wasn't aware of. I did not know that, and that they will continue to lead the way for unequal revenue share. I'm with it. So, what if this does happen? What are the tiers? Who are the teams that should get the highest percentage of the revenue? And then how many layers are there? Is it just going to be the best and then the rest? Or is it going to be the best and then the second tier, third tier, maybe fourth tier? I don't know. If I were to guess, there's probably going to be several tiers. We had this kind of float around for the Pac-12 for a while. Or who was it? Oregon, Washington, and Stanford, I believe, one of the highest cut. This was last year after USC and UCLA announced that they were going to the Big Ten. I think Oregon, Washington, and Stanford. Maybe it was just Oregon and Washington said, "Hey, we want," I think it was like 18%, 17%, whatever. And then Stanford and Utah, I want to say. Anyways, there was different tiers. I need to go back and watch that video because I forgot that was a video. Anyways, it was bracketed. That didn't really work out. But for the ACC, I think it could work out. I do. And I think in the top bracket, the top tier, the teams that this is just my opinion. I don't know if this is going to happen, or if it's going to be another type of situation. But in my opinion, in the top tier, the teams that should make the most money in the ACC should be Clemson, Florida State, I'm going to say North Carolina, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Miami Hurricanes. All right. I don't know the numbers. I'll have to look up as far as who makes what for the ACC. I could be wrong with some of these. I don't know. But I'll do a video on that as well. But just guessing, I would do that. By the way, unequal revenue share has actually gone on for a while. Now, eventually, like Nebraska, whenever they entered the Big Ten, they had unequal revenue share for a while. I'm not sure if they're caught up now and they have full revenue share, but yes, unequal revenue share has existed. To be honest with you, it has existed. Now, whether they would actually keep it as an actual law to where this is it, this is what you're getting paid, no matter what, I don't know. But Florida State and Clemson do have a case, and the people that argue against unequal revenue share. That means you're a fan of a team that you're scared of won't get that you don't think makes enough to get that. Just being honest. I'm a West Virginia fan, and I'm still for it. If Texas and Oklahoma were staying in the Big 12, I would be okay with Texas and Oklahoma getting a higher cut because they make more money. So if you're sitting out there arguing, no, there shouldn't be unequal revenue share, well, then that means you're a fan of a team that you're scared that you don't make the most money. So you want to be equal with the top brands. Otherwise, you'd be saying, yes, we want unequal revenue share because your team makes enough money to get that higher bracket. So there's going to be arguments back and forth between the lower brands, the mid brands, and the upper brands because, the lower brands are going to be arguing, well, we don't make enough, but we're again, that's not fair. That's not fair. Unequal revenue share is not fair. Well, it is. You don't make as much money for your conference as the upper brands, so you shouldn't get back as much as the upper brands. That's fair. I mean, it's like when you go out and get a job, right? Right? The base level get paid a certain amount for their work, and then you go up and up and up. It's the same thing. And if you really think about it, maybe this should have been done a while back. Maybe. I think so. I think a person, a university, or whatever should be rewarded for how much they're making for whoever they're working for. When you look at it that way, yes, these teams are basically working for their conferences, and the teams that aren't making as much for their conference is they're still getting as much as the teams that make more. I don't think it's fair. But I'm sure this is going to be an interesting conversation. I can already tell. Aloha, Nate. Aloha. Am I reading it? Aloha, excuse me. Aloha, Nate, 2004. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, how important is revenue in terms of success? Didn't Clemson win 2 national championships making ACC money? That's a fair argument. But at the same time, coaching staff matters. And Clemson, I don't know how their budget goes, but they pay their coaching staff up there. Dabo Swinney is one of the highest paid coaches in the entire nation. Revenue most certainly helps in that situation. So, you're correct as far as Clemson won 2 national championships making ACC money. Maybe they're just more committed to football and they're able to pay their coaches more because they set more money aside for football. But if you make more, then you don't have to take away from other stuff that maybe you're taking away from to give to football. So now you can, fund everything a little bit more because you're getting more from football. But that is an interesting question because it is a fact. Clemson did win 2 national championships making ACC money. The way that I would counter that is before these new deals, though. Don't forget, yes, there's still a gap between the ACC and the SEC right now. There was a gap between the SEC and the ACC as far as revenue goes when Clemson won their national championships. But that gap is about to explode. I mean, it's not even going to be fair. And that's why they're making these arguments. The reason we haven't heard these arguments from Clemson and Florida State up until now is because they see the writing on the wall. They don't want to fall behind. Right now, Clemson's not behind. They're budgeting their money well. They're, focusing on football. I don't know how they're budgeting their money, what they're, maybe, I don't want to say taking away from, but maybe not putting as much into as other universities. I don't know. But right now, they're keeping up. When this gap happens, they're not going to be able to keep up. They're not. The SEC and the Big Ten are about to make a crap ton of money. And it's very, very interesting to see what's going on at Clemson right now. They just expanded Death Valley again, both in capacity and facilities. I live about 15 minutes from Clemson University, so I go over there and I look at the progress. And that Jumbotron, I've been both to Sanford Stadium, which is Georgia's home stadium, and I've been to Death Valley many, many times. And that Jumbotron that Clemson is building looks identical, freaking identical to Georgia's Jumbotron. When you looked at Clemson before the renovations and you looked at Clemson now, and you look at Clemson now after the renovations, right? Clemson, their home stadium definitely looks more SEC now. I'm just saying. Clemson's home stadium, Death Valley, definitely, without a doubt, looks way more SEC now. Now, before the renovations, it was still a very nice facility. It was a very nice stadium, huge stadium, over 80,000 in capacity, which is SEC type already. But the extra things that they've done is kind of put Clemson over the top. And that goes back to the point that I was saying earlier, where they are budgeting their money to where they are funding football. They are actively funding football. But they know whenever this gap happens, there's only so much you can do. There is no way to make up a $50, $40 million gap. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can only cut so many corners. And I'm not accusing Clemson of cutting corners or anything, but I mean, come on. They have one of the highest paid coaching staffs in the entire nation with ACC money. There has to be at least a few corners being cut out there, all right? And they know whenever that gap happens, those corners that they're cutting, they're going to have to cut even more unless their revenue is raised. And because Clemson is making so much money for the ACC, I think it's validated. I do. I think the amount of money that Florida State's making for the ACC, I think that would be validated. North Carolina, I'm not sure about Miami's budget, but just by guessing their brand, I would say Miami is at least close to that upper echelon. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe they're not even close. I don't know. But just from, their history, their brand, the passion of the fan base, I mean, you go out there and on YouTube, and there is a lot of Miami Hurricane YouTube channels out there. I mean, they get a ton of support. And the Ruiz brothers, they're building a really, really nice stadium for Miami. 60,000 seater, though. Like, to me, that's a little underwhelming as far as capacity. I think they could go a little higher, and they would still be able to pack it out. 60,000 for Miami is a little small for me. If they're going to build a new stadium, I would say – and I understand, well, go to Blue. They don't pack out the stadium they're in now. I understand that, but they're playing in a pro football stadium. It's a little more difficult, and Miami has fallen on hard times. If you build a new state-of-the-art stadium with a brand like Miami and start having success, yes, that would be great. Because remember, whenever Miami was in the Orange Bowl, that thing was slammed. It is insane to compare the home atmosphere of the Orange Bowl to the home atmosphere of the stadium that Miami plays in right now. It's not even close. It's laughable. The atmosphere where what's the name of their stadium now? It was Sun Life. They changed it to something else. They changed the name of it so much because it's Pro Stadium and the naming rights change almost every other year, something like that. So I don't even know what the new name of it is. But the atmosphere is it's not there. It is not there. whenever they played at the Orange Bowl, that was a scary place to play. Scary. They most certainly had a home field advantage at the Orange Bowl. So if they can build something intimidating, and I think the fans would support it. Now, Miami needs to start having success. I mean, that's one thing. And I think it was a huge letdown last year whenever Cristobal came in. And people, even myself, I fell for it. I thought Miami was going to have a 10-win season, and they did not succeed in that. However, in the offseason, you know, we're seeing that they're recruiting at a high level. The transfer portal is working for them. I think Miami will take a step forward this year. Now, I'm not predicting a 10-win season. I'm not falling for that again. But, you know, I could see 8-4, something like that. At least 7-5. I mean, you got to take at least a step forward to go 7-5. Otherwise, the fan base is really going to turn on Mario Cristobal. I mean, they turned already, but some of them are, you know, they're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, a lot of them are giving them, you know, was that the right hire? I mean, we were expecting 10-win season and we got that. So I don't know. Yeah. Shady, they did pack out the Orange Bowl. I remember that, like especially in the 90s and up until that I would say up until that 2001 season, one of the all-time greatest Miami teams of all time. They did pack out the Orange Bowl. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Hurricanes had massive fan support back when they were in the Big East, dominating. See, that's what happens. Miami was dominating the Big East. They were winning national championships, and they were a good team. The fan support was there, and I know you're a Miami Hurricanes fan, and you know your stuff, but I have to disagree with you on that one, man. It was definitely packed out back in the Big East days, for sure. Even when they played West Virginia. I remember whenever, let's see, what year was it? Whenever, was it Quincy? No, I think it was Avon Colburn had what was called the run. We still lost the game, okay? Miami still won the game. It was either Avon Colburn or Quincy Wilson where Miami was up, but it was a swing pass, and he ran the dude over, bowled him over, and then hurdled a guy for a touchdown. I thought West Virginia was going to win the game, but no, Miami was just good that year. And it might have been that 2001 year. I'm not sure. It was early 2000s, late 90s, something like that. But that was a great play by West Virginia. But Miami was a good team, and that atmosphere was just incredible. For a West Virginia game, it was absolutely slammed packed. I'm not saying that they sold out every game, dude. Oh, I'm saying they had a lot bigger turnout, and it was packed out most of the time. And it was sold out a lot of the time. Matt Ritson, thank you for the $1.99 donation, says Hard Rock Stadium, home Dolphin, and Miami Canes. Oh, it's Hard Rock Stadium? Really? I thought that was changed again. You might be right. Hard Rock Stadium sounds right, but I thought the naming rights was changed again. I'm telling you, the name has been that's my point right there. That's my point right there. The name has changed so much that I lost track of it. So yeah. John Marzullo, thank you for the generous $9.99 donation. Says, don't you know when you plan on bringing? Oh, okay, excuse me. Don't know when you plan on bringing people on via StreamYard, but got tidbits from writers in ACC country you'd probably want to hear. Cheers. Yes, whenever I get my laptop back, I'll be able to bring people on again. Otherwise, that's the whole problem. My laptop went down. Thought I was going to have it back sooner rather than later. I don't know what's going on. I might have to buy a new one anyways with my income tax money. But yes, whenever I get my laptop back, we'll do stream share and bring people on again. But yes, we will do that. But John says he's got some tidbits from writers in ACC country, something that I might want to hear. You can always email me, refsuck@gmail.com. If I have any moderators in there, or if you already know it, you can send it to my email. I'd love to do a video on that because little by little, chunk by chunk, things are starting to come out. Yesterday, it was Florida State saying, you know, we're making a lot for the ACC. And on top of that, they hinted at unequal revenue share, but they flat out came out and said, you know, we had our legal counsel look into it as far as what it would take for Florida State to leave the ACC. And the number that they came up with was 120 million. 120 million. So, and John Marzullo actually rebutted on that and said, no, that's just the buyout. And the total cost that it would take for anybody to get out of the ACC would be indeed $500 million, which is what I thought the entire time. So I'm trying to figure out why they gave out that number. If they know that 120 million is only the buyout, but it would still cost them 500 million to get out of the grant of rights. Otherwise, even if they do pay the 120 million and go, say, to the SEC, the money that they make in media rights still goes to the ACC. So that's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. If it's true, if the locked number is $500 million to get out of the grant of rights, why did they say 120 million? That would be pointless. Okay, the buyout's 120 million, but to get out of the grant of rights, which is the most important thing, 500 million total. 500 million. I don't think it's 500 plus 120. I think it's total 500 million. I don't know if they were trying to trick the ACC or trick the general public or scare the ACC or scare the general public. I don't know. But I need to look into those grant of rights and figure out what it actually costs to get out of the ACC, because that's the biggest question. And that's why a lot of people think that nobody's leaving the ACC, because it's going to cost $500 million. Nobody's going to. 120 million, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of money. 500 million is basically undoable. I mean, it would take Florida State, what, 5-6 years to make that up in revenue in the SEC? Something like that. I mean, that's a long time. Now, with 120 million, you can make that up in 2 years or less. That's a big discrepancy. So I'm trying to figure out why they said that. Honestly, two things. I'm trying to figure out why they said that, and the actual number. I want to know the actual number. Somebody in the chat, Kalana. Man, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name. I'm going to butcher that, man. I'm going to say Kalana L, and I know I butchered that. I'm sorry. Says 500 mil, and you get only 50% of conference payout for 5 to 10 years. I don't think that's a good deal at all. I'm going to have to figure that out, because it wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that Florida State would come out and say, hey, it would only cost us $120 million to get out of the ACC, if the money they made would still go to the ACC because they weren't actually out of the grant of rights. And how would and on top of that, how would you be an actual member of another conference if you can't sign their grant of rights, because you're still locked into the grant of rights of the ACC? See, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What does it take for a team to get out of the ACC grant of rights? That's what needs to be figured out. And it wasn't yesterday. Maybe it was Thursday or Wednesday. Somebody told me, and I can't remember the name, but somebody told me that it was 500 million, but it actually goes down every year as well. I don't know if that's true or not. That's why I really need to look into it. If it's 500 million, then nobody's leaving. It's not going to happen. But if it's 120 million, then Florida State could afford it. Clemson could probably afford it. Maybe North Carolina could afford it. There would be certain brands that could afford it. Now, once you get down to your Georgia Techs or Virginia Techs, your Louisvilles, your Pitts, your Syracuses, certainly your Wake Forest and Boston Colleges, they're not gonna pay that. They're not gonna pay that. But your bigger brands, yeah, they're gonna pay 120 million, and they can make it up in 2 years. 500 million, I just don't see it happening. So I guess the biggest question is, what happens now? What happens now, guys? Do they get their unequal revenue share? And if they do, this could be a slippery slope, because then a lot of brands, which I agree with unequal revenue share, the more you make for a conference, the more you should get back. I mean, that seems fair to me. It does. But what brands would have that argument? And would it be a certain percentage for certain brands and then everybody gets the rest? Or would it be, well, you know, we don't make as much for the ACC as they do, but we make more than they do. So there would be, it would almost be like a tax bracket. You'd have the rich, the middle class, and the poor. If I'm the ACC, you might have a few mad brands in there. You probably will. But if that's what it takes for the ACC to stay intact, shouldn't you do it? Number one, it seems fair. Okay, yes, people are going to be mad, but it does seem fair. Number two, you're avoiding a mass exodus if they can afford the buyout, or if there's that vote to dissolve the ACC granted rights, which I've been hearing that for the past year or so, that a majority vote, I think it's 8. I don't know the exact number now because a lot of people say, no, it's 9, no, it's 10, but I really think it's 8. So then you have the thing where you could have the majority vote that dissolves the ACC granted rights and they go away altogether. That would be worst case scenario for the ACC, because not only would you have teams leaving, but you wouldn't be getting any money from their departure. So if that's true, if it's in the bylaws of the ACC that there is a majority as far as can vote and dissolve the grant of rights, then if you're the ACC, you don't want that to happen, and you want to please these guys. All right. So you guys want. I'm going to make up numbers. I don't know what numbers they're actually wanting. All right. You guys want what? 18%. All right. You guys want what? 15%. The rest of you guys, you're going to get like 8%. Sorry, but I mean, you're still making more than if you were in the AAC. You're still making more than if you were in the Sun Belt or Conference USA or wherever, which they would. I'm talking about like your Wake Forest and your Boston College, the lowest brands. So they really wouldn't have an argument. Yes, they would be mad because they wouldn't be making as much money as other people. But what's their argument? Joey, I'm going to highlight your comment because I forgot about that. Joey Foster, behind the scenes guy at Golden Blue. Y'all know Joey Foster by now. Says the precedence was set when Maryland left the ACC. I'm going to fill in the ACC. They let them out. What's that one word? And that set a precedence to fall back on. Yes, that's a legal argument right there. That is a legal argument. D-Barks, yes, that's what I was talking about. D-Barks says, and yes, GBD, Nebraska is fully paid right now and no longer subject to unequal revenue share. But for I don't know how many years, Nebraska did unequal revenue share with the Big Ten whenever they entered the Big Ten. So for people that don't think that there's a precedence on unequal revenue share, it happens all the time, to be honest with you. And now we know that there's a precedence as far as teams leaving for less than $500 million, and Florida State and Clemson could perhaps argue that if it went to, the legal platform. I don't know if they could get out. I don't know how much they could argue down, but certainly less than $500 million because, that's how it went for Maryland. So there's that. This is a lot of good stuff for the video that I'm going to do tomorrow. So the big question is, number one, the first thing that I want to know is, flat out, yes or no, does Florida State and Clemson want out of the ACC? Is that what they're saying? We want out. Or would they be okay with unequal revenue share? Because they don't want teams leaving at all. Because if that clause in the bylaw exists as far as the majority can vote to dissolve, and I'm sure there are 8 teams in there. I've had video after that. I've given my guesses, but I'm sure, teams that, other conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten, yes, if you vote to dissolve, you have a spot. I'm sure conversations have gone on behind closed doors. We just found out from the Clemson athletic director that conversations behind closed doors about unequal revenue shares have happened. So these other conversations, I'm sure they've happened as well. SEC's telling Clemson, yeah, man, if you vote to dissolve and if you can get out scot-free, yeah, we got a spot for you. Maybe Florida State's talking to the Big Ten. Remember, Florida State has been pursuing AU status since 2017, and they're really, really close right now. Florida State and the SEC, they don't get along. The SEC turned down Florida State several times, and then when they actually invited Florida State, the ACC invited them at the same time. Florida State chose the ACC. I don't see Florida State going to the SEC. I don't. That's why they're actively pursuing AU status. And maybe the Big Ten can pull some strings because, you know, they know people that know people, blah, 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 to help them get AU status. And they're like, yeah, we're going to help you get AU status, and you will have a spot. So then there's that. Now, I'm seeing Ed in the comment that says, you know, that doesn't happen. He says, no, GBD, there are not ACC schools with a standing offer, not yet. I don't know about that. I really don't, because it depends on if that number exists or not, because I'm hearing different stories about that. I really think that it does, because I've actually had people look into the grant of rights and they said, yeah, it is. But I'm still having arguments. No, yes. But the people that actually looked into it for me said, yes, that clause does exist. If those here's the thing. If those conferences want these teams sooner rather than later, and they want them out without any punishment, then they need the right amount promised spots. So I would say for the SEC and for the Big Ten. Then you could have the Big 12 in there. But the Big 12, you know, the money's not there. That it's not as much as the SEC or the Big Ten. The only way the Big 12 could promise something and it would actually hold weight would be like, we already know these other 8 teams are voting. If you vote, then you can jump out of a dying ACC. It's going to die, all right? We can't promise you the money of the SEC or the Big Ten, but it's better than, you know, the money that you're going to get whenever the ACC dies, or, you know, end up having to join a Group of 5 conference. That's really the only leverage that the Big 12 could have. They would actually need those 8 teams to vote first, and then or know that they're going to vote, and then be like, we have a landing spot. That would be the only thing they could offer. John Marzullo, thank you for the $9 donation. Says, just emailed you. Loving this conversation. Everybody is loving this conversation because conference realignment is the buzz of the town. I am definitely going to look at that, man, and I will probably do a video on it because I want to know what's being said with the tidbits, with these interviews. Who knows? Are there other teams that are going to come out and say, yeah, we want unequal revenue share as well? Because yesterday, I didn't know Clemson was talking about it. I mean, Clemson... I mean, there were rumors and stuff like that, but the Clemson athletic director actually came out today and said, yeah, we've had talks. We're talking about it. We think it's fair. The contributions that we've, you know, given to the ACC in our community, but especially in football, which drives this revenue, we think this is needed. Viva Hernando 1. I'm going to say it again. One of my favorite YouTube names out here on YouTube. Love it. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I knew Frack Clemson would chime in after Frick, FSU. Frickin' Frack. That's awesome, dude. Maryland objected to last Gore deal when it was in the ACC. Plus, the years agreed was shorter. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. But to Joey's point, there is a precedent. Even though it was a different Gore, there's a different precedent. That's why I'm not sure if they could use it in a legal setting or how they could use it in a legal setting. So that's the thing right there. I don't know. But who knows? Maybe they could use the Maryland argument because it did happen. It didn't happen under these particular grant of rights, but it did happen. I love the frickin' Frack, though. And now that I think about it, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, Florida State said something. We've been thinking about it. We got to see. We think that unequal revenue share should happen as well. But at the same time, I really do believe that the Clemson athletic director, as far as conversations going on behind closed doors. Listen, we don't know what's being talked about behind closed doors. I mean, there's some crazy things being talked about behind closed doors. It's just whenever it actually comes out and an athletic director actually says it, that's when we can latch onto it and be like, they actually said it. We knew it, but he actually said it. Clemson has been thinking about it. Clemson does want unequal revenue share. Florida State has been thinking about it. They came out and said it. They want unequal revenue share. Now we know for sure. What other athletic directors from the ACC are going to come out and say, we've been talking about it too, guys. We want it too. Now, once you get down, I mean, the Wake Forest athletic director isn't going to come out and say that. The Boston College athletic director isn't going to come out and say that. So there's certain universities where their athletic director, no, they're not going to come out and say that because they're the lesser brands. They don't make as much money. But I've seen in the comments section some verbiage, some comments about Syracuse. I do think Syracuse could be in the mix. Syracuse? What? Their stadium only holds 55,000, and they haven't had good attendance here recently. That's true. That's true. But nationally, they have a big fan base. Syracuse has the #1 fan base as far as size. And I'm talking about football, not just basketball. Football. Football. #1 fan base as far as size in the ACC. All over the place. Surprised me. But that's the numbers, for sure. I didn't make it up. It isn't a rumor. It isn't a opinion. Those are facts. Syracuse, the #1 as far as size goes, fan base in the ACC. Will we hear an interview posted or something come out? The Syracuse athletic director comes out and says, yeah, we think that it's fair too for unequal revenue share. Maybe they are in the upper tier. It's hard to really put them up there until you consider the fact that they do have that #1 fan base, if you're not counting Notre Dame. That's my next question. How does Notre Dame feel about these universities coming out and saying that? Do they even care? I don't know. They've been silent about all this stuff. And like I mentioned the other day, I can't remember who the source of this. It was either CBS or was it 3? I think it was CBS. CBS said that NBC is looking for, let me get you, Joey. I'll get your comment real quick. NBC is looking at getting a contract with the NBA in April and May. And if they're able to land a solid deal with the NBA, then they might, not for sure, they might not have the money that Notre Dame's wanting. Notre Dame's wanting between 70 and 80 million per year, which is fair. Notre Dame is a very, very dominant brand, one of the biggest brands, if not the biggest brand in the entire nation. So, honestly, I'm for the NBA on NBC. I don't know if y'all remember it, but man, the NBA on NBC had one of the best theme songs, if not the best theme song of any sports show ever. The announcers were great, awesome, loved it. The theme song was great. The presentation was great. I truly do. I want the NBA on NBC to come back. I do. And it doesn't have anything to do with Notre Dame. But Notre Dame is going to be affected, is the point of this. I want the NBA on NBC to come back, but according to, I'm pretty sure it was CBS. I'll go back and watch my own video because I can't remember. But it was a national source that said it. I'm pretty sure it's CBS. That if NBC does get a contract with the NBA, they might not have enough money to give Notre Dame what they want. Does that mean that Notre Dame starts thinking about joining a conference? Here's the thing. The reason I brought up Notre Dame is if the ACC starts giving out unequal revenue share, then Notre Dame's looking at the ACC. Well, if we join the ACC, not only would we increase the revenue, because yes, ESPN would renegotiate to bring in Notre Dame, but on top of that, Notre Dame, listen, if Clemson gets unequal revenue share and Florida State gets unequal revenue share, you better believe that Notre Dame would most certainly, guaranteed, lock it down, get unequal revenue share. It would happen. Viva Hernando 1, thank you for the $5 donation, says, no one cared when the twerps left. True fact, especially West Virginia fans. Living in the heart of Tobacco Road, no one seems too concerned about the ACC collapsing. Anyways, go Pack. NC State. I did not know that you were an NC State fan. I'm glad to know that. Which, by the way, we don't have an NC State mini helmet. Just let you know. Just let you know we don't. Which, by the way, I checked my. Let me put the banner back up real quick. Where did it go, guys? Oh, there you go. That's where you send your gear to, by the way. I'm just letting you know, man. Just letting you know. But anyways, today I went to my PO box, and of course the post office itself is not open, but you can always check your PO box when you have your key. And I checked it, and sure enough, there was a slip there. So I do have a package, but I wasn't able to pick it up today because the post office itself wasn't open. Usually, whenever you get something that can't fit in your mailbox, they put it in a locker and they put a key in your box. But whenever all the boxes are taken and they don't have a key for you, then they'll leave a slip. So I'm interested to see what I got. I think if I had to bet, I think it would be the Fresno State mini helmet because I think that was on the way. We will see. Anyways, got off on the mini helmet tyrant. Anyways, so Viva Hernandez saying around Tobacco Road, nobody seems concerned about the ACC collapsing. It's funny you mentioned that because the pulse of the ACC does go through Tobacco Road. It does. Especially North Carolina, Duke, and NC State. Wake Forest, not so much. But those three brands do have a major, major impact as far as the pulse of the ACC. They are high influencers. So I'm glad you brought that up. So Florida State has come out, talked about unequal revenue share. They took it a step further and talked about, the actual amount to leave the ACC. Now, Clemson didn't do that. Clemson just talked about unequal revenue share. They didn't take that extra step and say, we took legal counsel and we figured out this is how much it would take to leave the ACC. Clemson didn't do that. Florida State did. Clemson didn't do it. What if Tobacco Road gets involved in this? Especially North Carolina. So they're out there watching these interviews come out. Whoa. Florida State athletic director said, what? They said, what? And then today, you got to be kidding me. Now Clemson athletic director is chiming in. I expect some type of announcement from North Carolina. Maybe from Duke and NC State. I don't know. But definitely from North Carolina. North Carolina does not like to be stood up when it comes to the ACC. North Carolina is the biggest influencer of the ACC. One of the biggest reasons why West Virginia was not accepted into the ACC. Maryland, when they were in the ACC, they were a major contributor as far as why West Virginia didn't get accepted. But North Carolina was number one. They are the biggest influencer of the ACC. I promise you that. Promise you. So I am expecting for there to be some type of, I don't know what they would say, how they would say it, whether it be interview, tweet, Instagram, whatever, YouTube channel, I don't know. But seeing Florida State's athletic director come out and say something about unequal revenue share and possibly leaving, and then today Clemson coming out and saying something about unequal revenue share, I expect there to be some type of reaction from North Carolina, especially. Yes, Joshua Harrelson, ACC HQ, basically yes. North Carolina is basically the headquarters of the ACC. So, and I promise you this, they do not want to be stood up. There will be a reaction from North Carolina. I promise you that. Ryan C. says he was quite mad when they passed on the Orlando building for a new HQ. Yeah, I heard about that. And now it's in Charlotte. That's why the ACC championship game is played in Charlotte, which honestly, when you think about it, Charlotte is kind of the middle point. So as far as the actual championship game, yeah, I'm good with that. But I think North Carolina has too big of a draw, too big of a pull, too big of an influence in the ACC. But I do expect. Now, what are they going to say, though? Are they going to come out and say, yeah, that'll never happen, guys? Sorry. We say no, so the answer is no. Or are they going to kind of agree with them? Yeah, we make a lot of money for the ACC as well. we agree with you. There should be unequal revenue share, and North Carolina should be at the top of the totem pole. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, honestly, if I were Clemson, if I were Florida State, I would be talking to North Carolina right now. I would be. And maybe that's what the Clemson athletic director was alluding to. Maybe they have been talking to North Carolina, because people do not realize how much influence North Carolina has. A lot of people think too much. See, I read the comments. I saw that comment. I read them. They do. They have a lot of influence. A lot of people think too much. I don't know the ins and outs of the ACC, so I can't give my opinion as far as, oh, they have too much influence. I just know they have a lot of influence. So a reaction is coming. I just don't know what type of reaction. If I had to guess, this is my hot take. If I had to guess, I think North Carolina would join Clemson and Florida State as far as saying, yes, the top tier brands should have unequal revenue share, because they know that they're one of the top tier brands. Now, if they were like the Wake Forest or Boston College of the ACC, no, they wouldn't say anything. You're not going to hear anything from Wake Forest or Boston College, because they are on the lower part of the ACC, and it would be bad for them. They would actually lose money, because without a renegotiation, unequal revenue share, you got to take money from the lower brands and give it to the upper brands. Yeah. And North Carolina's ruthless when it comes to the ACC. So if I had to guess, if Clemson and Florida State have been talking to North Carolina, and I think they have. I think they've been talking. I think North Carolina will get it done, because North Carolina has the most influence out of any university. You could probably put 6 universities together, and that would equal North Carolina as far as their influence in the ACC. So if you want something done in the ACC, go to North Carolina. If you think North Carolina will agree to it, go to North Carolina. And guess what? North Carolina is going to agree with this. Why? Because North Carolina is one of the upper brands. They're going to agree to this, and so I think this could happen. I think unequal revenue share will be the future of the ACC, or the ACC gets torn apart. Yeah, the ACC gets torn apart, for sure. Because I do think people looked into those grant of rights for me. I truly do believe that there's that clause that says, now what's disputable is the number of teams. I believe it's 8. It could be 9 or 10. Could be. I believe it's 8. And I think those 8 teams do exist. And, if this unequal revenue share doesn't happen, they could do the dissolve thing, which would be the worst case scenario for the ACC. I don't think North Carolina wants that to happen. I don't. I know a lot of people say, no, North Carolina wants out of the ACC, like desperately. I disagree with that, because they have a lot of influence in the ACC. If they can stay in the ACC and make more money, they're going to do it. Because North Carolina in the SEC or North Carolina in the Big Ten is not the same North Carolina. They're not going to have the same influence. They're not going to have the same power. It's not going to happen. So it's in the best interest of North Carolina to go the route of the unequal revenue share. Otherwise, they're going to end up in a conference where they don't have maybe hardly any pull at all. None. But if they do, it's not going to be near as much. Not even close. Not even close to as much pull as what they have in the ACC. Man. And since all this came out, it leads me to believe that those talks that I was hearing between the ACC and Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal were true. I think that's true now, because the reason I think that's true is when you draw in big-time moneymakers like that, and Stanford and Cal is not big-time moneymakers when it comes to football, but they are big-time moneymakers whenever it comes to research and academics. And yes, that is factored into these high academics conferences, all right? I know it doesn't have anything to do with football, but they will want them to come in. So you bring in those 4 brands. Number one, you're taking them off the table from the Big Ten. Off the table. Done. Big Ten can't choose them. This is a double whammy for the Big Ten, by the way. So if the ACC can grab Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford, number one, you take the money off the table, or you take the teams off the table for the Big Ten, right? If you can get them in, you can renegotiate that TV deal. Yes. Those brands would be valuable enough to renegotiate. I don't think they would get SEC or Big Ten money, but they would certainly get more money. I think you would be approaching $50 million per team per year, which is a significant increase. Not SEC or Big Ten money, but certainly more money than ACC money right now. So you bring those 4 teams in, you take them off the menu from the Big Ten. The second way that hurts the Big Ten is now the ACC is off the menu from the Big Ten. Why? Because you're bringing in those 4 teams, right? Which means it would take more teams to vote down the grant of rights, so the numbers go up, and the money is going to be better. So these teams are going to be more satisfied. And if they do decide to go unequal revenue share, if they do decide to go that route, bringing in those 4 teams and the revenue goes up, then the teams that get the unequal revenue share, of course, they get more money. The lower teams, they get more money as well, but there's a gap. So, yes, I 100% believe that the ACC was talking to Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Now, if they're talking to them now, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything in about a week. But it was a hot topic, and I do think that it was going on. I do. It would benefit the ACC greatly. They do not want to dissolve. They don't want to get picked apart. Now, the higher brands, they want the unequal revenue share. From my understanding, having talked to sources and actual fans, they love the ACC. They just don't like the money of the ACC. So that would be a win-win for the ACC. You don't get disbanded, and you're raising the money, and the teams at the top. And I'm sure Oregon and Washington would be added to that upper echelon as far as the teams that get unequal revenue share, getting the more money, whether it's 18%, 17%, whatever they agree on. And I think it's fair. The more money you earn for your conference, the more money you should get back. Agreed. Yes, 100%. Make it happen. If you don't make it happen, ACC, you're done. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. John Marzullo, thank you for the $4.99 donation, says, if W was in top tier of revenue share, would you want to join the ACC? Honestly, I would want to join the ACC as long as they're solid. I know we're not in the upper echelon. We'd probably be in the mid-tier. But, see, like I stated before, I would be okay with that because you're getting what you earn. As long as we get what we deserve, the amount, and not less, I'm okay with that. That seems fair to me. I would be okay with Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina, perhaps Miami. I don't know their numbers, but perhaps Miami Hurricanes getting paid more than West Virginia. Just like, if unequal revenue share would have kept Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12, I would have been okay with that. I know that Texas and Oklahoma made more money for the Big 12. I would have been okay with that. So to answer your question, John Marzullo, I would have been okay with that no matter what. Okay? No matter what. I would have been okay with West Virginia to the ACC. It makes more sense. Travel would have been a lot easier. Rivals, man, we would get to play our rivals every year. Listen, you guys do not understand how important playing your rivals every year until it gets taken away from you. Like even Pitt, yes, you don't get to play West Virginia every year, but you still get to play all your other former Big East rivals every year. So it hurts not to play the backyard brawl every year, but you get to play everybody else every year. For West Virginia, we don't get to play any of our rivals every year. None of them. And that absolutely sucks. It sucks. So I would be okay with joining the ACC as long as they're stable, they're not collapsing. If it's unequal revenue share and we're not in the top tier, so be it. I understand we wouldn't make as much money as everybody else or as the upper echelon. I do think West Virginia would make more for the ACC. You're not going to like me for this one, John. I think we would make more money for the ACC than Pitt, over Boston College, over Syracuse, over Georgia Tech. Louisville is close. Maybe a smidge for West Virginia or maybe a smidge for Louisville. I don't know. But I understand that we wouldn't be the biggest brand. And I would be okay with that. I think travel would kind of make up for, that unequal revenue share, because travel is absolutely brutal in the Big 12. And that's why I'm actually hoping that the Big 12 doesn't get those Pac-12 teams. That is not good for West Virginia. Not at all. I would rather the Big 12 sit back and see if the ACC collapses. And then if they do, that's when you can pick up, and no offense to, the leftovers, but you guys would be the leftovers, pick up Pitt, Louisville, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech, because I think the SEC would get Virginia and NC State, not Virginia and Virginia Tech. They would want a new footprint in the state of a new footprint in a new state. If you get Virginia and Virginia Tech, that's still only one state. Yeah, you got the rivalry, but it's still only one state. You get Virginia, NC State, you're getting Virginia and North Carolina, because I think North Carolina is going to the Big Ten. They have AU status, great academics. They would love those. Shared resources with the Big Ten. Especially if they brought in Cal and Stanford. My gosh, the resources in academics and research that Cal and Stanford have, unrivaled. Nobody can touch them. Nobody can touch them at all. So it wouldn't be a bad move by the Big Ten to grab them. But for West Virginia, I would be okay with unequal revenue share as is, not being one of the biggest brands, for all the reasons that I mentioned. But if the ACC is on shaky ground, then no, I wouldn't want to join the ACC. In fact, I made a video earlier today. I think that's the reason why you asked that comment or asked that question, because I made that video earlier today. But that video was based on the ACC being shaky because Florida State's athletic, and this was before Clemson's athletic director came out and said something. But yesterday, Florida State's athletic director came out and said something. But I knew that the buck didn't stop there. I knew if Florida State's talking about it, then I know other people's talking about it. Well, today, Clemson came out. Tomorrow, maybe North Carolina comes out. The next day, maybe Miami comes out. Maybe there's a few other teams. I don't know. But I knew it wasn't going to stop at Florida State. So that told me, oh, wait a minute. Don't want to be in the ACC now. They're too shaky. Don't want to join a dying conference. So now, stay in the Big 12. Let's see if the ACC collapses, and then bring in our rivals. Strengthen the east side of the Big 12. I'm really, really hoping that Brett Yormark does not forget about the east side, because even though you brought in Cincinnati and UCF, doesn't really help us that much. On top of that, now Cincinnati and UCF need help as well as far as travels. So don't get those West teams. Wait and see what happens with the – this is the first signs of collapse, guys. It is. Now, maybe the ACC does agree to unequal revenue share, and it appeases everybody up until 2036. That could happen. Honestly, if they don't want to collapse, they need to do that. So that could happen. If the ACC collapses and Virginia Tech doesn't have a landing spot to the Big Ten or the SEC, yes, they would end up in the Big 12. I'm not predicting Virginia Tech to go to the Big 12. I'm saying in the scenario that the ACC collapses, I think the Big Ten would get North Carolina and Duke because they would be joined at the hip, package deal, and they would get Georgia Tech and Florida State. The SEC would get the Miami Hurricanes, Clemson, NC State, and Virginia. 4 different footprints in 4 different states. In that scenario, yes, Virginia Tech would end up in the Big 12. Some of these outcomes are out of our control. Some of the things that have happened, I didn't want to happen. Before West Virginia went to the Big 12, I was saying West Virginia to the Big 12, that'll never happen. So I'm warning you, Virginia Tech fans, never say never. Things happen that you never thought would happen. John Teal, thank you for the $5 donation, says, trade Syracuse for Boise State. No, dude. No. Give BYU a travel partner and add mountain time. I did the math, and it's less than a $2 million loss per team. Syracuse would bring in this isn't just a West Virginia argument. This isn't just an East argument. Syracuse would bring in way more money than Boise State. I do feel bad for Boise State because the way things happened really hurt them. I don't understand, and I have Houston subscribers, and they're mad at me for me saying this, but I don't understand the Big 12 getting Houston over Boise State. Here's why. You already have Texas Tech, you already have Baylor, you already have TCU. You have a great presence in the state of Texas, right? You don't need an extra brand. Houston does not have a big draw in the state of Texas. They don't have a big fan base. They kind of get the leftovers. Now, they built a new stadium, and it looks great, but it's super small at the same time. Boise State is also investing in their facilities as well. And Boise State gives you a new footprint in a new state. And Boise State gets more fan support than Houston. I truly believe that Boise State would have made more money than Houston. But because Big 12 got BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, plus in the new TV deal, it says if the Big 12 brings in more Group of 5 members, former Group of 5 members, whatever you want to call it, there's no guarantee of a revenue increase. So I don't think that the Big 12 is going to be looking at any I don't think the Big 12 is going to look at any new Group of 5 members unless it's in the state of California. They could look at a Fresno State or a San Diego State because Brett Yormark, he is obsessed with getting that Pacific time zone. Now, it looks like San Diego State is headed to the Pac-12, but at the same time, I was told that the Pac-12 has a TV deal, and we know the crazy twists and I mean, that is the craziest story that I've heard so far. It really has. It really has been a crazy, crazy story. It started out as, they have a good TV deal with ESPN, rivals the Big 12, maybe a little bit better than the Big 12. We're talking about $35 million per team per year. Sounds good. Then it turned into, well, now they're thinking about giving Tier 1 rights to Amazon, and then ESPN will get Tier 2 and Tier 3. Okay. And it would have been around $25 million per team per year. That's a drop. Not good. And then ESPN pulled their deal because of ESPN cuts, and they re-offered $100 million a year, which would have been $10 million per team per year. Coupled that with Amazon's $10 million per team per year. Now you're looking at $20 million per team. We went from $35 million per team per year down to $20 million per team per year. What? Doesn't stop there. My gosh. Then we heard, no, it looks like that might not happen. And now Apple TV is the front runner to pick up the media rights deal for the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 going 100% streaming. You got to be kidding me. That's insane. And then I heard all the presidents in the Pac-12 were vehemently, that was the word used, vehemently against 100% streaming. Brett McMurphy comes out and says Apple TV never even offered the Pac-12, and now Ion Television has emerged as a front runner for Pac-12 media rights. And then Monty said, no, we actually talked to Ion, and they said they don't know what he's talking about. They never even talked to Pac-12. So Brett McMurphy knows how Golden Blue feels now. Because back in 2021, after Oklahoma and Texas left for the SEC, I had good sources. Joey knows my sources. They were good. And they were telling me, I'm telling you, Golden Blue West Virginia and Notre Dame will be added to the ACC soon. You're going to hear an announcement, Golden Blue soon. So I'm good to make videos? Yes, Golden Blue You're going to look like a fortune teller. You're going to look like a genius. Okay. So I started pumping out videos. It never happened. Egg on my face. Nobody will ever, ever let me live that down. It's a part of my life now. I have accepted that. It's okay. Well, now, Brett McMurphy, you're going to have to live with that. I'm here for support if you need it, buddy. I'm here for support because I know how you feel. I do. John Teal, thank you for the $2 donation, says, BYU is an island. You have to give them something. 100% agree. And Boise State would do that. Masta MacGyver is not a source. 100% agree. He is not a source. That's why I call him our favorite college football conspiracy theorist. It's funny how people pick and choose what I say. They pick. He said this, but he didn't say that. I didn't hear him say that, but I did. So it's bad. I heard him mention MacGyver, but I didn't hear him say that he thinks that MacGyver is a college football conspiracy theorist. I'm going to leave that part out and just go with he mentioned MacGyver. I clearly stated that MacGyver is not a source. Clearly, in plain English, he is not a source. He is our favorite college football conspiracy theorist, meaning take whatever he says with a grain of salt, because sometimes it's just not believable. But here at Going Unbluted, it's entertaining, so it's good for content. Same thing with using comments. I go through my comments every single day, people. Every single day. And that's why I encourage people to leave comments, because I will use your comments if I like them. Whether it's going to happen or not, that doesn't matter in my opinion. Doesn't matter. If I like it, if I think people will enjoy the content, if I think it's entertaining, I'm going to use it. And if you don't understand that by now, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. John Teal, thank you for the $5 donation, says, I posted the math on your video today. I will check it out. I posted the math on your video today. Fine, keep Syracuse and tag out Louisville. But you have to give BYU a life raft. That way you can share trap. I agree with that, but you also got to realize BYU is close to the core of the Big 12. They're not super far away like West Virginia. There's a gap. They are on an island. I am not disputing that. I'm just saying you got to focus on the East. Now, if you want to swap out Louisville, yeah, I can live with Louisville. I mean, we had some good games with Louisville, and I do consider Louisville a rival to a certain extent, but definitely not more of a rival than Syracuse, Pitt, and Virginia Tech. So I can agree with that. Swap out Louisville for Boise State. And Hank says, GBD, I can promise when a thought crosses my mind, I type it. And I'll be looking for it, of course. Syracuse, Pitt, and Virginia Tech are definitely our biggest rivals. And I do know that Louisville would make money for the Big 12. I'm not sure if the Big 12 would be willing to do that. But to your point, I would be willing to swap Louisville for Boise State. Out of all the brands that I mentioned, Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse, Louisville would be the brand that I would be like, okay, if you're going to swap a brand for Boise State, it would be Louisville. I just think Boise State missed the boat. And it's not their fault. It's the Big 12's fault. Now, I like the UFC choice, or UCF, not UFC. We're not doing MMA. No. I like the UCF choice because that gets a footprint in the state of Florida, and UCF is going to be a moneymaker. They're just getting their feet wet, but UCF is on the rise for sure. I like the UCF pick. I like the Cincinnati pick. It's recognizable. They made the college football playoff. I do think Cincinnati is going to take a massive step backwards because Luke Fickell is gone, and they're going to play Power 5. But I understand why they got UCF. I definitely like the BYU pick. 100% agree with that. BYU is going to make a lot of money for the Big 12. Houston is the brand that I just didn't understand. You already have Texas nailed down. You have Boise State you could have chose from. It would have helped BYU. You don't need any more Texas schools. It just didn't make any sense. John Teal, thank you for the $2 donation, says, after all, Louisville took your rightful spot. That stung, man. That stung. I knew you weren't coming at me like that, but just thinking about, yeah, that should have been West Virginia's spot. Yeah. Now, I think Louisville is one of the teams that the ACC doesn't regret taking, but I think Boston College, they definitely regret taking Boston College over West Virginia. That one just, I mean, that one has bit them in the rear end year after year after year. They thought they were getting the Boston TV market, but really it turns out Boston is a pro sports team. And when Boston College is bad, it's even worse. And Boston College has been really, really bad. They are making nothing, hardly anything for the ACC. You put in West Virginia would be making a lot more for the ACC right now than Boston College. I mean, it's not even funny. That's the one that makes me the maddest, to be honest with you. Taking Boston College over West Virginia, whenever they announced Boston College, I was like, what? Insanity. It didn't make sense at the time, and it doesn't make sense now. But the ACC is going to have to make decisions if they want to stay alive. That's the whole point of this video. Is the ACC is going to have to make changes. They're going to have to make decisions to keep up with everybody else. Getting to 2036, I mean, that's it. That's it. Getting to 20, you have to get 2036. Otherwise, you might not last another couple of years. So Clemson's come out, Florida State's come out. They want unequal revenue share. I promise you, North Carolina, they're going to be coming out. Syracuse, I believe, will coming out. Miami could come out. You're going to have, 5, 6 teams come out and say, yeah, we agree with Clemson and Florida State. We need unequal revenue share. We're gonna look into the legal ramifications as far as leaving the ACC and see how much it takes as well. And then the ACC will be backed up into a corner. Get the talks heated up with Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. That would help the ACC tremendously. You're bringing up the numbers as far as needed to vote to dissolve, and you're going to bring up the revenue. You're still going to have to do unequal revenue share, but with the revenue boost, the teams that get more money will get even more money, and the ACC will exist for a long time if they do that. It's as simple as that. The ACC might be two decisions away from solidifying their future or not having a future. Decision number 1, unequal revenue share. Boom. Do it. Do it. Decision number 2, Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Or at minimum, Oregon and Washington. Do it. Make it happen. Oregon and Washington don't want to go to the Big 12. They don't. Will they do it if the Pac-12 dies and it's their only option? Yes, they will. They really want to go to the Big 10. But I'm telling you, the ACC is an academic conference, and if they can negotiate that dollar amount up, it would appeal to Oregon and Washington. And with them going in, I do think the ACC would be able to negotiate that dollar amount up. Stay on them, ACC. You got to get at least Oregon and Washington to come in. Do unequal revenue share and try your hardest to get Oregon and Washington in. Otherwise, you might be doomed. John Teal, dude, great supporter of Golden Blue. We do appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I think the Big 12 took HU so the Pac wouldn't. I can understand that, but I really don't care if the Pac-12 has a presence in the state of Texas. I mean, you want to take SMU, fine. You want to take Houston, fine. I just don't think Houston's going to help the Big 12 all that much. Like the Pac taking Fresno State before the Big 12. Yeah, but I don't know if they're going to be able to take Fresno State before the Big 12. I do think they'll be able to take San Diego State. And your pod of West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pitt, and Syracuse would work. It would 100% work, and it would make some money for the Big 12. I don't know if Brett, to be honest with you, and I saw him. I couldn't really get close to him. But I saw Brett Yormark in the Backyard Brawl. I was at the Backyard Brawl. He was at the Backyard Brawl. I saw him, okay? So he was at the Backyard Brawl, but does he really get how much that rivalry would make for the Big 12? Does he get how much the rivalry between West Virginia and Virginia Tech would make for the Big 12? Does he get how much West Virginia, that's a rivalry. West Virginia-Syracuse is a good rivalry. Does he get how much that rivalry would make for the Big 12? West Virginia-Louisville, although it's not as solidified as the other three, it's still a decent rivalry. Does he understand how much money those rivalries would make for the Big 12? I don't know. He might be so focused on getting a footprint in the state of California, he might not even be looking at those numbers. And might not even be saying, hey, it looks like teams in the ACC are not happy, and the ACC could fall apart, and we could pick up those rivalries. I don't know. I think he's a good businessman. I really do. He locked in that TV deal, jumped the line ahead of the Pac-12. George Kliavkoff, freaking idiot. So he is capable of making good decisions. I just hope that he doesn't get so obsessed about that he blocks everything else out. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, we ran almost an hour and a half tonight. That's a little more than I usually do. I usually do it about an hour. But you guys kept commenting. You kept super chatting. The numbers stayed up, so I kept talking. Hey, I greatly appreciate your support, guys. There's no Golden Bluted without you guys, which, by the way, we are doing another We Are or I Am Golden Bluted. All you have to do is wear your team's gear. If you're not a West Virginia fan, don't wear West Virginia. If you're a Clemson fan, wear Clemson gear. Oklahoma fan, Oklahoma gear. Whoever you're a fan of, wear your team's gear. And then all you have to say is, I am Golden Bluted, if it's just yourself. If you're with some people, you say, we are Golden Bluted. 5-10 seconds, that's it. Send it to me at refsuck@gmail.com. If I have any moderators, y'all put that in the chat. And we made one last year, and it was amazing. So go look that up, and you'll see it came out amazing. And I think we'll have a lot more entries. So if you want to be a part of it, man, get it in. I'll keep my email open for. I might do the entire month of March. It depends on how many entries I get by then. I might only be able to keep it open for 2 weeks. So send your 5-10 second clip of I am Golden Bluted or we are Golden Bluted as soon as possible, because there will be a time limit, because I expect there to be an influx this year. John T.O., thank you for the $5 donation, says, keep in mind when HU signed the Big 12, the Pacs still have the LA market with USC and UCLA. That's true. If we had them in Houston plus San Francisco, Oakland, I mean, yeah, I get that. I get that. But the only way we get even close to the LA market is if we get San Diego State, and it sounds like the Pac-12 is getting that. John Marzullo, thank you for the $1.09 donation, says, saying we are is painful for a Pitt fan. I get it. But guess what? Guess what? Talk is Pitt did it last year. I had a Pitt fan. Talk is Pitt, and me and him are friends. I consider him a friend. He sent in a clip last year. He's a part of that video forever, and he said we are. He didn't say I am. He said we are. So, you can change it to I am, because I know we are is, Penn State. Change it to I am. I don't think any team has I am, so I don't know. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the shows. I enjoy this channel. It's really it's taken on a life of its own. But having said that, there is no Golden Bluted without you guys. There really isn't. So if you haven't, please hit the like button. If you weren't able to catch the live show and you're watching the replay, hit the like button. It still helps. It doesn't matter if you watch this live. And if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting on? This is what we do every day. I'm not worried about, credibility and being right and, all this. I'm about having fun. I'm about not being scared to talk about what's on my mind, not being scared about what people think about me, and having fun and entertaining you guys. That's what this channel is all about. I'm not some stiff out here like, oh man, they're going to think that I'm stupid if I say that. Doesn't matter. It's all about entertaining you guys and having fun. So as long as I've done that, we're good. Y'all enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm pretty sure I'm not doing a live show tomorrow, but you never know. So keep your eyes out for that. But for tonight, it's official, people. Golden Bluted is out.